Okay, the Slim Vita is getting a replaceable battery mod. You will need a thermistor at 10k ohms with only a 1% variance. Its B value needs to be between 3350 and 3450. There are many kinds, you don't have to perform these tests. Choose one that works for you. You can use any 3.7 lithium within this volume range. This battery had more capacity than advertised. You're going to need to cut and strip wires. You also want electrical tape to shield, something sharp to cut plastic, precision Phillips, a soldering iron, normal tip. You need solder, you need flux and rubbing alcohol to clean it up. I use a very common plug that comes on a lot of batteries, JST 2.0. Make sure that the colors coordinate when the connector fits together. If you lift the plastic under the pins, you can actually switch the wires. Okay, 7 screws get us in, 2 on the bottom, 1 on the top under in the game bay, and 4 on the back. Really important to get the memory card out before you open the case. So I just did the same thing I do with my 1000s. I go behind the left trigger and pull and it pops open. But I recently cut my nails, so I grabbed a guitar pick type tool to help with the other side. Just open slowly from the top. There's a cable near the bottom. You need to lift the back side of a connector attached to that belt to set it free. All of the belt connectors are like this. Batteries gotta come out. They're the exact same size. And the guard has to come out. I do see more potential there for more modding room. Two screws on that, 2 on the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi. And it all just comes right off. Game bay door. The Slim Vita is really simple. I really kind of like it. We need to take out the bar that grounds the left controller board, because it's also in the way of the motherboard. And there's 4 belts total, 3 on the front and the camera after those 3 that need to be removed, just like that first one we did. We got a little thing to pull up on the back, and then the belt comes free. I just pull all 3 up and then remove all the belts. Only pull with the flap up on the connector. This one's wide, take it slow, side to side. So I popped this top button panel up here, but you can really just take the whole thing off. I do end up doing that. Okay, flipping over from the right, it does have a clip on the right. When you release that clip, it'll flip from the right, and you can get at this last clip in here. Okay, 3 points on the board we care about, same as the cable that the battery had. Thermistor, ground, 3.7 volts. This mounting spot gets naturally really close to the battery. It will require a little cutting of the plastic, but I thought it would make the job easy. This one has stiff legs, so I just bend them over so they line up, and then I shorten them. You can put the thermistor anywhere really, because it'll sense the environmental temperatures. I'm mounting it at the battery because that's the way Sony intended, but you can put it anywhere and get all of the actual protection. Alright, lined up and ready to solder. The key to soldering is Flux. It helps your tin flow and it helps your metals blend. Without it, soldering's pretty hard. Just get a nice coat on all three. And also the thermistor points or thermistor wire. Now we need to add tin to the thermistor legs or thermistor wire, and also to the pads on the board. Okay, now the key to adding solder to the board is to heat the board up so that the board itself can melt the solder, and then add the solder to the board. Just as important as flux for soldering is cleaning with rubbing alcohol or something that can remove the flux. It gets in the way of future soldering if you don't. Now that tin has been added to everything, we need to coat everything with flux again. And since everything has tin and the board has a little extra solder, I can just rest them on the pads they're supposed to solder to and heat it up and melt them together. A better view in a moment, sorry about the fuzzy camera. If the thermistor or the wire that go on the center of the three pads touch the resistor behind it, that's totally fine. It connects right to that anyway. With the thermistor installed, we just have to install the battery cable. It's best to put some electrical tape on anything that might touch anything metal. Alright, since we melted the solder on the middle pad, I'm going to add a little more to it and make sure that mounts nice and high on it. Remember, heat up the board first and then add solder to the board. Okay, we want to turn the connector around on the JST for the installation purposes. So I just fold it and then wind a electrical tape around it really tight and then cut off the end of the electrical tape. Gonna need to cut the cord just a little bit. So here I'm measuring. This is where I want it to sit. And then I pinch it right where it would start going into the board and start comparing it to the board from there. So from right here, it's gonna start at the board. So then I hold it up to a board. And start measuring from there. So from this corner, I want to mark where I want to cut on my wires. Red pad is on the right. The black ground pad is the middle pad. Chop them off at the line and then strip just a little bit. All right, more flux because we do have to tin these as well. And here's the tin. This just makes the two tins combine a lot easier on the board and on the wire. Again, more flux. So we do want to sit this on the top of it and melt it down into the solder. You do want it to sit on there for a second because we do want it to get hot. But since it's already pretty well fused, that's basically all the bond we need. You need to make sure the red side doesn't touch anything else, just that spot. And that's all the soldering. We just gotta feel it, make sure that bond is tight. If these come loose, do it again. So I lost a little footage of the first scrapings of the plastic, but here's some more, and then there's some more later on as well. Do yourself a favor and just remove all of the plastic in here except for the wall on the furthest edge. I end up doing that anyway, except for like a little post in the middle there. And this chunk of plastic has to come off, or else the wires won't fit. Be very gentle. There are components under this cap. Alright, this is about what you want it to look like. I did actually remove more plastic under where the battery goes, if you want to skip ahead and just do it all. Can be awkward to hold like this. It won't go in if that flap isn't open, so just make sure. I should have removed L&R before. To make sure it's all the way in with a screwdriver on the tabs on the side of it. Hard to be sure, making double sure. pulling all 3 other belts out so I can connect them. I actually slide it in to the left and then clip it in. The plastic will click it into place. It also sits on some plastic nubs. It only goes in just so. Make sure that new battery lead is routed where you want it, and all belts are out from under the board. When it's right, push it down. Here is where I realize there's even more plastic to remove. I want this clip to sit in there nice. It would be nice to find a better solution, but at least the battery is replaceable with just a clip. Connect all the belts, make sure the door is open before trying to get it in there, or it won't go. I mean, don't force anything and you should be fine. You can do this left-right because these little cables can be expensive if you happen to break them or fold them, or... You only have one of them, but they are pretty tough and fragile at the same time. This big one, especially the front LCD panel, you need to replace the whole front LCD again, I think, if you break this one. Again, it's tough, just respect it. The belts are in. These top button panel thing came off when I was breaking plastic during that first shoot. Controller grounding bar. Only do the one screw. Tuck that plastic behind the R trigger. Speaking of the R trigger, the L trigger, and the game bay cover, and the battery 6050 fits right in. Since this is now a replaceable battery, every time you change it, make sure your colors line up when you install a new battery. But if you ever need a new battery, it just clips in. Which is good because LiPos only really last 3 years, maybe 2. The extra lead from the battery can fit where the old battery clip kind of went. There is plenty of room back there. Alright, this ribbon cable can be a bear. If you put the back kind of behind it before you come up like this, seemed to be the best option. Make sure that door is open before you try this. And then from here, kind of hook the back on the headphone port and the micro USB. And from there, it just kind of closes, squeezing slowly around from the bottom in a circle around the console. If the joystick areas won't quite close, it's because they're not quite set. Just open it up and reset those buttons. And that's the mod, so I'm just going to turn it on, make sure it charges, and then put in the rest of the screws. It has the same battery mod issues that the 1000 has, but with this one it will go 6.5 hours before needing to be turned off for 2 minutes to reset the battery, and that is due to it lasting 6.5 hours on a charge. This battery with 3300 milliamp hours would last about 10 hours, but this battery had more milliamp hours than advertised. At 3700 milliamp hours, it should last almost 11 hours. It weighs about 12 grams more with the larger battery capacity. Thanks for checking it out.